I'm a tool junkie, and over the last few years, I've taken a look at a lot of unusual and unique tools that I guarantee you haven't seen before. So I thought it might be a great idea to dial the clock back and revisit some of these unique tools. Now let's be clear, this is no best of video, as there's some tools on this list that are collecting a lot of dust in my shop. But hey, if you're a gadget lover, you came to the right place, as some of these tools have such a specific use that you might find a unique gem out there that might be useful for your shop. And yes, that big boy in this video is also me, so leave a comment and take a guess at how much weight I've lost. So grab a cup of coffee, your favorite blanket, and settle in for this compilation video of some of the most unique tools I've ever taken a look at. So our first item of the day is the Octopus Ready multi-plug charger. Let's take a look at it. Once you've been in the woodworking game for a period of time, you're bound to collect a bunch of different brands of batteries. And a frustrating side effect of having a bunch of different variety of batteries is keeping all those batteries charged. Not to mention, battery chargers take up a lot of space. In fact, I've even thought about building a battery charging station for my own shop. But what if you could eliminate a battery charging station and have one small area in your shop that could accommodate all your batteries? Well, that's exactly what this Octopus Ready multi-plug charger does. So let's open up the box and see what comes with it. If we open up the box, I think you'll immediately understand why they called this Octopus Ready. Inside the box, you're going to find the instructions along with a power distributor. You'll also find some fuses as well as 4 plugs. Lastly, you'll find the power cord. So how does this thing work? Well, let's first look at the back of the box to get an idea of how we charge the batteries. If we look at the back of the box, you can see a variety of different types of brands that this charger can accommodate, including brands like Makita, Bosch, Milwaukee, as well as DeWalt. But let's take a look at the structure of this charger to see how it works. First off, we have the power cord, and if we open up that power cord on one side, you'll see it contains a fuse. And this is an extremely important feature of this charger, as it prevents any damage to your batteries in case you reverse the polarities. It's that power cord that attaches to, well, the Octopus. And these two are attached by simply clicking them together using the one-directional attachment. With the Octopus, or what they call the multi-cable attached, we can now take a look at the plugs. And this is something that I was extremely concerned with when I first opened this tool. However, they've got a unique design that I think handles this problem. Now, if you're like me, you're probably concerned as to whether or not the two polarities can touch, creating a spark or even a fire. But fortunately, the design of this tool addresses that. Let's take a closer look. First off, on the base of the plug, the polarities are clearly labeled, with the positive being red and the negative being black. And each one of these polarities is on a hinge, which is pretty interesting. Each one of these polarities is able to easily move in almost any direction, but it's actually the hinge itself that prevents the polarities from touching each other. And the plug attaches in the same way to the multi-cable as the multi-cable attached to that power cord, using a one-directional connection point. And as I showed earlier, there's 4 of these plugs that attach in the same way, giving you the ability to charge 4 batteries at once. Now, I'm not an electrician and I don't pretend to be one. However, for me, I'm not going to have more than one of these plugs attached unless I have it directly attached to a battery. And that's because even though each individual plug has separation between the two polarities, if you have 2 going at once, I'm guessing they could cross-contaminate. But I suppose that's why that fuse is there. But once again, I'm not an electrician, but I did stay in a Holiday Inn Express last night. With the plugs attached, this unit is now ready to be attached to the battery. Now I have a real-life need for this tool, as I've got a DeWalt drill and battery but no charger. And this thing hasn't worked in ages. In fact, when I pull the trigger, all you'll see is a little light in front flash. So I want to see if I can bring this old drill back from the dead. First off, I'll remove the battery from the tool. Now I want to look for the positive and negative port of the tool. And this is typically clearly labeled on the battery, and it can be in different spots. In the case of the DeWalt, the positive is on the left-hand side and the negative on the right. So I'll then match up the polarities on the plug and slide them into the appropriate slot. With that being the only battery attached to the Octopus, I'll now plug the charger in. And with everything plugged in, you can see there's an LED indicator that will shine red until that battery is fully charged, and then it will turn green. But while that DeWalt charges, I've got some other batteries that need to be charged as well. And as I said earlier, you can do up to 4 batteries at once with this charger, and this thing can accommodate any 18 to 21 volt lithium ion battery. So let's put it to the test and add 3 more batteries. And here I have a Milwaukee on the right, a Haichika in the middle, and an Alloy Man on the left, which is the same structure as Makita. And with the plugs attached to the battery, I'll simply plug them into the Octopus. So I'm going to let that sit for a bit and see if I can finally use that DeWalt again. Now that it's been a couple of hours, I'm going to pull this DeWalt battery off and see if we can get this drill running again. So a pretty cool little gadget for those of you that may have lost a battery charger or just want to lower your footprint on your battery charging station. But I will have to once again emphasize the importance of paying attention when you're using this charger, especially with having the open prongs that will have live current running through them. It's definitely a charger that needs to be watched and handled with extreme care. So this is the XCool 3-in-1 laser level. Let's unbox it and see what it's all about. So inside the box, you're just going to find a few items. You'll find the laser level itself along with a charging cord. You'll also find a mounting bracket as well as a little attachment to collect all the wood shavings if you're using a drill. Lastly, you'll find an extra foam pad for the suction on this device. So in order to get an understanding of how this tool functions, we first need to take a look at the physical construction of the laser level itself. If we look at the front of the laser level, you'll notice there's an old-fashioned bubble level both for the horizontal and vertical readings. On the very side of the laser level is the on and off button. Now you may have noticed that the on button for this tool was orange, but there's also two other orange buttons on this tool as well. The second orange button on the front of the tool allows you to detach the dust collection chute and attach the mounting bracket. And you heard me right, I did say dust collection for a laser level. The idea here is that if you find a point using your laser level where you want to drill a hole in your wall, you simply place the round area right over that point. Once you're ready to start drilling, you simply slide the included dust collector over the tip of your drill. Then you can simply take your drill and drill out the hole through the center of the tool. And I'll be honest, I'm pretty impressed with the collection of this tool, as no dust got on the floor. If you want to remove this dust, you simply flip the tool around and open the back, and you can see all those dust shavings right inside the tool. Now, is this something that I'll ever use? I really have no idea, but it is a nice feature if you're using this tool indoors. Now, we haven't even touched upon the feature that I think sets this tool apart from all the others. And that feature has everything to do with suction. And that brings us back to the first button that we talked about on the side. We already mentioned if we press it once, it turns the tool on. And if we flip the tool around, you'll notice the battery readout right on the very front of the machine. If we press and hold this button, it will actually turn the laser on the very bottom. But there's even one more function for that button on the side. If we flip the tool around, you'll notice some foam padding that runs along the edge of the tool. And believe it or not, this is an area that creates a vacuum so that you can attach this to almost any surface you want. By simply pressing the button on the side to turn it on and pressing it once more, it will start that vacuum process. And this is where the secondary light display on the front of the tool also comes into play. We mentioned that the left display shows the battery level, but the right display shows how strong that suction level is. And as you can see, with the vacuum in place, this thing isn't going anywhere, even on pine. And that brings us to our third orange button, which actually stops the vacuum and releases the tool. So as you can see, it's fully attached right here, and once I press this button, it easily releases itself. And this level can attach to almost anything, even items like sheathing that has a lot of wood grain. And by first leveling out the tools using the bubble levels and then turning on the vacuum, you can get your lines perfectly straight. Then it's just a matter of making your markings or lining up items like photos or pictures. And the smoother the surface, the stronger that seal is, as the vacuum will actually stop once it reaches its maximum. And once it reaches its maximum, there's no way you're going to get this off without pressing the stop button. The last thing that I want to show you with this tool is the ability to increase its functionality by attaching a 3D laser level. To do this, you'll simply detach the dust collection by pressing the orange button, and then you can attach the mounting bracket. Once the mounting bracket is in place, you can attach any 3D laser level just by twisting the orange knob. And just like before, you can attach this tool even with the extra weight to rough items like sheathing. And this tool is called Hang On to Your Bits, made by Driverback. Let's take a look at this tool and see if it does what it's called. So you can always tell when a tool is made in the USA. It doesn't get more simple than Hang On to Your Bits as a title for this tool. If we open the box, you can see it comes with a number of bits as well as a unique design feature. So let's take this tool out of the box and see exactly how it works. So one of the nice things about this tool is it's universal. If we look at the instructions, you can see that this tool will fit almost every single brand. It will fit everything from DeWalt to Ryobi all the way up to Festool. And it comes with the accessories and the instructions on how to fit all these major tools. This tool comes preloaded with 4 different types of bit. It comes with a Phillips head bit, a couple of star bits, as well as a square bit. Frankly, those are some of the bits that I use the most in my shop, but you can customize this and add your own bits. So how does this tool work? Well, it's essentially a strap-on. A strap-on for your impact driver. The first thing that you want to do is to take the accessory that's associated with your impact driver, and then you attach it to the very front. To do this, you simply slide the accessory into the 2 holes, and then it should be securely fastened. Once that's done, you simply slide the tool over your impact driver. Once you have the front secure, there's a little zip tie in the very back where you can lock it into place. Once you have this tool adhered to your impact driver, it kind of looks like a Gatling gun. But even though this thing looks really cool, let's take a look at its functionality. As you can see, you can remove the bits and place them right into the impact driver. Then it spins freely without causing any interference with the turning. Now, did you see that snapback? That's one of the features that makes this tool so cool. Each one of these bits is attached to a spring that allows it to move easily backwards and forwards. The spring is located inside of this barrel. There's also a magnet that allows it to easily snap back into place. So this allows you to easily switch bits on the fly. They snap back into place and you can move on with your next bit. And as I said before, this tool allows you to store up to 4 bits, so you can have your favorite 4 bits installed with your impact driver.
4 bits!
This tool also comes with 2 replacement springs just in case you need them down the road. But that combination with the spring and the magnet really do work quite well. Well, I'm not going to lie, this may be one of the greatest gadgets that I've ever featured on this channel. This is going to allow me to store all my bits on board with my impact driver, and I'm never going to lose those bits that I use on a regular basis. So our first item today is the Rock Steel Rotating Tape Measure. What the hell is a rotating tape measure? Well, let me show you. So inside this package, it comes with 2 items. It comes with the tape measure itself, as well as a little needle that you place directly in the center of that tape measure. If we look at the tape measure itself, you can see that it functions just about like any other tape measure. You pull it out to extend it, and you press the tab to bring it back in. There are a couple of differences, however, with this tape measure. If we pull it out, you can see that it starts at 3.5 inches, and this is because you're actually measuring the radius of a circle. So this means that the minimum size circle that you can create with this tape measure is a circle with a 7-inch diameter. But you may be asking how large of a circle you can create with this tape measure. Let's find out. So if we pull the tape measure all the way out, you can see that it goes to about an 80-inch radius. So this means you can create a circle that's a 160-inch diameter. Now that's a big circle. Not quite sure why you need to go that big, but maybe you're making a round deck or something. Now if we look at the very end of this tape measure, you can see there's a round area where you can place a pencil. And there's a little nut here where you can tighten it down to make sure that your pencil's installed. Now one thing I did want to mention with this tape measure is all this hardware is plastic, so I'm a little bit disappointed with that. However, for this price, this is about what you can expect. So let's test this out. We'll place the pin in the center of this circle, and we'll draw a 7-inch circle and then a 10-inch circle. And then we'll take a tape measure and see how accurate this thing is. So first off, I wanted to say that this thing maneuvered around that arch very smoothly. It held its center very securely, and there was very little wiggle room for your pencil as you made that circle. But none of this will matter if those circles don't have a 7-inch diameter and a 10-inch diameter. So let's go measure them up. Well, I'm happy to say if we measure our first circle, we're right at 7 inches, and if I extend it to the exterior circle, we're right at about 10 inches. Now this may have a little bit of wiggle room, approximately a 64th or a 32nd of an inch, but this thing is pretty accurate. But there's another feature of this tape measure as well. If we look at the very back of the tape measure, there's a little lip here. This lip is used to rest against the edge of your workpiece so that you can scribe lines down your workpiece. So this tool seems to work pretty well. I do, however, have two concerns about this tool. The first concern is the plastic hardware. Now I'm afraid that this plastic hardware will eventually strip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a pencil in that hardware and then I'm just going to let it sit in there. The second thing is the metal pin. Now there's nowhere to store this pin on this tool, and I assume I'm probably going to lose this pin. However, I'm sure you could just use a nail if you lose this thing. Although not perfect, that's a pretty cool little tool. So this next tool is the WoodRaic multi-gauge. Let's get into this box and see what it's all about. So this tool is the WoodRaic multi-gauge. As you can see, this has got a really unique design, so let's take a look at some of its features. So one of the first things that caught my eye about this tool is the tool is made in black with white graphics. This makes it very easy to read. The second thing that caught my eye was its unique design with the 45-degree angle on it. The third thing that caught my eye is it's got a lip, and if you've seen my channel for any period of time, you know that I love lips on tools. It also has a lip for the 45-degree angle. And this tool comes in imperial and metric, so you can get whatever measurement system you're using.
Almost every nation on Earth has fallen under the yoke of tyranny, the metric system, kilograms.
So let's dig into this tool and let's take a look at 4 features that I see myself using this tool for. So first and foremost, I'll be using this tool to scribe lines. You can see that you adjust the tool by pushing the ruler forward. Then you tighten it down with this little knob on the side. Once you have this tool locked down to your desired measurement, it really couldn't be easier to scribe out your lines. In this case, I've got it measured up to 3 inches exactly. So with the tool set to 3 inches, you can rest your tool right up against the edge of your workpiece. And this is a 4-inch lip, so it gives you plenty of support. But not only is there a 4-inch lip, but there's also a 4-inch ruler here that gives you plenty of support for your pencil. This makes it very easy to scribe out your lines. The second use that I foresee myself using this tool for is a square. With that large lip, you can rest it on the edge of your workpiece, and it's also got this lip at the very top. This gives you plenty support as you check your measurements. The third use that I see myself using this tool for are to make repetitive 45-degree angle marks. By simply resting the lip right up against the edge of your material, you can make repetitive 45-degree angles. Fourth and finally, I see myself using this tool as a depth gauge. Let me show you what I'm talking about. To use this tool as a depth gauge, we're simply going to unscrew the tab, take the ruler out, and place it into the opposite side. With that ruler in backwards, you can see with the lip engaged with the plywood, you can get an easily depth measurement for this sheet of plywood. Now initially when I got this ruler, I was a little bit concerned that the ruler didn't have any holes down the length of it. But my concerns were immediately alleviated once I realized how you're supposed to use this tool. By having this long 4-inch lip, this allows you to scribe your lines without the need for those holes. One of my main problems with this square is all those holes tend to break my lead every single time I use it. So let me know in the comments if you've seen this T feature for scribing lines on any other tool. I think this is really a game changer. So this tool is called the Ply Wheel. Let's dig into this tool and see how it works. So this tool really couldn't be any more simple. It's just a dolly on 2 3-inch wheels. And this tool is made to accommodate almost any thickness of plywood. Let's take a closer look. If we take an overhead view of this tool, you can see there's little step notches on the dolly. This allows you to accommodate any thickness of plywood. You can do 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch all the way up to 3/4 of an inch. You can even accommodate 6/4 lumber. You might also notice there's a curved profile on the inside. This allows you to more easily slide your plywood onto this dolly. So let's give this a test and slide this plywood onto this dolly. So with this dolly in place directly in the center of gravity of the plywood, I can easily maneuver this plywood wherever I want to go. I can also make 360-degree turns very easily. And unlike using plywood clamps or gator grips, there's no effort in holding this plywood up off the ground. So I've got a new favorite for maneuvering my plywood around. Now I just have to put this plywood back. So this next tool is an 8-piece plug cutter. Nope, not that kind of plug. So this 8-piece plug cutter set comes with 8 different bits for 4 different sizes. Let's open it up and take a look at it. So if we take a closer look at the bits that come in the box, you can see that there's 8 different types of bits. And these have sizes of 5/8, 1/2, 3/8, and 1/4 inch. You can also see there's 2 different types of bits. There's the claw cutter as well as a chamfered cutter. So what's the difference between a claw cutter and a chamfered cutter? Well, I'm not a plug cutter expert, but if we compare the 2 bits, you can see that the claw cutter is much more shallower in depth. And if we take a look at the chamfered cutter, we can assume that this is going to make a larger plug. But let's put these bits into our drill press and see how they work. So for this example, I'm going to make 2 cuts with the chamfered cutter and 2 cuts with the claw cutter. I'm going to make all 4 of these cuts on this piece of scrap 4x4, and then we're going to cut them out over at the bandsaw. So let's get started. So if we take a look at the 4 plugs that we just created, you can see that the claw cutter creates a much more shallower plug. If we look at the chamfered cutter, it creates a much deeper plug. So my suspicions were correct. So by taking these plugs over to the bandsaw, we can cut these out and see how they look. And you can see by making that cut how much shallower the claw cuts are versus the chamfered cuts. And you can see how nicely these 1/2-inch plugs fit into these 1/2-inch holes. So having a nice plug cutter set like this is a great way to save a little bit of money by not having to buy those expensive dowels. You can also perfectly match your wood because you can cut those plugs right out of the wood you're working on. This thing is the Step Gauge 3D ruler. Let's unbox this and take a closer look. So inside the packaging, you can see it comes with 2 3D rulers. There's a larger one and a smaller one. The larger one has 1/8-inch increments going all the way up to 1.5 inches, while the smaller one has 1/16-inch increments going all the way from 1/16 of an inch to 1 1/16 of an inch. If we look at the side profile of these rulers, you can see that the larger one is 12 inches long. When we look at the smaller one, it's 8.5 inches long. If we look at the top of these rulers, you can see there's easy to read labels that tell you what the height is of each one of these steps. Now you may be asking, what are you going to use a 3D ruler for? Well, for me, I'm not going to be using it as a ruler, but instead I'm going to be using it as a setup gauge. Because if you think about it, there really is nothing more sensitive than our fingertips. Well, maybe there's a couple of things. However, if you think about it, your fingertip can fill the width of an actual human hair. And a human hair is 1/1000th of an inch. And I don't know about you, but 1/1000th of an inch is plenty precise for me. In fact, I would argue that my fingers work way better than my eyes at this age because I have to use bifocals when working around the shop. So before I move on to show you how I'm going to be using this tool, let me show you a couple of bonus features that this tool has. So both of these features are on the smaller ruler. The first feature is there's a small magnet at the very bottom. This is perfect for placing it on things like your table saw to get an accurate measurement. The second thing is there's a little pencil sharpener at the very bottom. Another nice feature of having a magnet on the base of the small ruler is there's a metal plate on the base of the large ruler, so you can slide them together for storage. So where I envision using this tool is primarily at the table saw and the router table. This should make setup quick and easy. So if I want to make larger measurements, I typically grab my 1, 2, 3 block. The problem with this 1, 2, 3 block is it doesn't have the increments that this 3D ruler has. So if I wanted to make an 1.5 inch cut on a workpiece, I could find the 1.5 inch mark and raise my blade. And you can literally get a feel for where the blade is. And because this tool has a wide footprint, you could also use it to set up the fence on your table saw. If I wanted to make a 3/4 of an inch cut, I'd simply slide it into place and adjust my fence. But most importantly, you want to know whether or not this tool is accurate. And if I place my 2 rulers together, I feel no variation in the 1 inch marking. And if I place my 1, 2, 3 block next to it, there's no variation whatsoever. So my overall impression of this tool is that I really like it. I like the fact that this thing is kind of dummy proof and it allows you to use your finger as part of the measuring process. Your finger can be one of the most accurate tools in your shop. So for those of us that are getting a little bit older and our eyes are not as good as they used to be, this may be the perfect gauge for you. So this first tool is the Morgan Square.
I'm old school.
This may look like any ordinary square, but it's got a lot more functions. Let's take a look at it. So if we take a closer look at this square, you can see it has a really unique design. On the very left-hand side, it has inches as well as millimeters. At the very bottom, there's the letters CL, which stand for center line. Over on the right-hand side, there's a couple of tabs, and if we flip it over, there's also a little lip on the back. So if you're anything like me, you're probably wondering, what the heck are all those tabs for? Well, we need to load this bad boy up. So let's do that now. So the first thing that we need to do is take a look at these tabs on the right-hand side. If you notice on this side, there's a little area that's jutting up. This is so that you can place your tape measure hook right on top. Once that's in place, you pull out your tape measure and slide it under this hook at the other side. But hey, I saw another tab on there.
What the hell is that?
Well, that, my friends, is for a good old-fashioned carpenter pencil. It slides right into that slot and it's very secure so it doesn't fall out. So now that we have this Morgan Square locked and loaded, let me show you how to use it. So first up, I mentioned that lip that's on the very back. This allows you to place it on a piece of wood and it's fully supported by itself. This lip also allows you to slide it easily back and forth on things like 2x4s. Once you're ready to take a measurement, you simply hook the end of the tape measure on the 2x4 and slide it down. And this is where this tool really shines for framing and layout. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So first off, if we measure the square, it's right at 1.5 inches. And this is the exact thickness of a 2x4. So by striking a line on either side of the square, you can determine exactly where your 2x4 will land. So let's say you need to set up a wall and you need to lay out your wall for 16 on center or even something like 12 on center.
That's not a thing!
Well, remember that center line marking? With the 16 inches marked right at the center line, you can strike a line on either side of the square and know exactly where your 2x4 will land. So you can just run down the line and strike your markings at 16, 32, and 48. And once you're done, you simply stow away your pencil and then you can move on to the next procedure. Well, this is a pretty cool little tool. I think this thing has a lot of use for carpenters that do a lot of framing. I know I'm going to use this tool when I frame out these walls behind me. So this is just a little red guy, and along with my SAet Pro, this is going to go live with my T-bevel. Let's take a closer look. So up close you can see some of the angles that this gauge can accommodate. It has a 45 degrees, a 36 degrees, a 30 degrees, a 22.5, a 15 degrees, as well as a 6:1, a 7:1, and an 8:1. Now I don't suspect I'll be using some of these smaller ones, but I'll definitely be using some of these larger ones. So the nice thing about this gauge is even though it's quite small, it does have a relatively large base. And this allows you to slide it on top of your T-bevel and find your desired angle. And in this case, we're right at 30 degrees. So whether you're using this gauge to do miters, trim work, or a variety of other uses, this thing is a great way to get a quick and dirty measurement on all those commonly used angles. In fact, you could even use this gauge to get that perfect 45-degree angle at your table saw, or flip it around to get that 90. So really, this is a perfect little reference gauge for all those commonly used angles. And this next tool is the XY3. And although it sounds like an algebra problem, it's not that complicated. Let's take a look. So at first glance, this may look like a variation of a combination square, and in some sense it is. It's got a long metal ruler with centimeters on one side as well as imperial on the other. It's got an L-shaped bracket that the ruler fits into with a locking gauge as well as a magnet to hold the ruler in place. Now I really like the open locking mechanism of this tool. It's got a very strong magnet that pulls the ruler into place, and then once you lock it down with a knob, this thing is very secure and isn't going anywhere. So let's start to take a closer look at some of the uses of this unique tool. So the first thing that we could use this tool for is simply as a ruler. It's a 12-inch ruler with 1/16 of an inch increments running down the entire 12 inches. Once we get below 3 inches, however, it goes all the way down to a 1/64 of an inch. And that's something I've never seen with a tool at this price point, a 64th of an inch. And it really only matters the first few inches, as this is where you're going to really creep on those really tight measurements. The next obvious use of this tool is to make 45-degree angles. And by placing the ruler into place and locking it down, you can make easy 45-degree angles by placing the base right on the edge of your workpiece. But not only does this tool have a 45-degree angle on it, if you flip it around, it's got a lip for a 90-degree angle on the back. So with that 90-degree lip on the back, we can also use this tool as a square. But not only that, we can use this to scribe lines. And since we have 64th of an inch increments below 3 inches, this becomes really accurate and precise. Now, although you can use this tool to create 90-degree angles and scribe lines, I did want to mention that the lip on this thing is quite small. It reminded me a lot of using a Polini pocket rule. And as you know, Polini pocket rules can tend to move on you when you're scribing your lines. So that's 4 uses of this tool already. However, the primary purpose of this tool I haven't even shown you. Let's take a look at what that is. So the primary purpose of using this tool is to find the direct center of any workpieces that's 12 inches or less. By resting both lips on the edge of your workpiece, you strike a line from the diagonal on one side and then the other side. And then you'll know that's the exact center. But this not only works for square pieces of wood, but it also works for round pieces of wood. Let me show you. Now, I really don't have a lot of large dowels in my shop, but let me show you with this small one. You simply place your dowel in the center of the tool, and then you strike a line across the diameter. Once you've done that, you rotate your dowel, and you strike another line across the diameter. Then you can see the intersection of those 2 points is the direct center of that dowel. So this could be a great feature to use if you work with circles a lot and you need to find the exact center. Also, if you have a lathe and you need to find a place to spin your workpiece around, this could be a great add-on. So our first item is the MCraft Trim45. Let's unbox this and see what it's all about. So inside the box comes the tool itself along with the instructions, and as you can see, this tool has got a lot of unique features that we need to talk about.
I must admit, some rather unique design features.
So what is this tool used for? Well, it's used to create trim for either doors or windows with an offset ranging from 0 all the way up to 1/2 of an inch. Before I demonstrate how to use this tool, I want to show you some of the physical components of this item. One of the first things you'll notice is this black gauge on the very bottom, and this slides back and forth at 1/16 inch increments and can be locked into place with a press of the red button. And it's this gauge that's going to create the offset for your trim. You also may have noticed a couple of slots that have a diagram of a tape measure. There's also 2 magnets that are right next to those slots, and these are to hold your tape measure into place as you're measuring your trim. So now that we have an idea of the basic physical components of this tool, let me show you how this tool is used. So for this example, I want to create some trim with a 1/4 inch reveal.
Pretty revealing.
So I'll simply take the slide rule and move it to a 1/4 of an inch. Then I'll depress the red button to lock it into place. So now that we have our 1/4 inch set, we can flip the tool around and see there's a corresponding lip, and that's what's going to rest right in the corner of your window or your door jamb. So we'll take our Trim45 and set it right into the corner of the jamb, and then we can take a pencil and strike a line on either side of the tool. We'll repeat this process on each of the 4 corners. Once you have all 4 corners marked out, you'll now notice that there's 2 holes in the frame of the tool. These 2 holes are for nails to attach this tool to either your window or your door. Now, I currently don't have any trim nails, but I do have some common nails, and these holes are large enough to accommodate those common nails.
Oh.
So we'll slide the tool into place into that corner and we'll hammer these in. Once we have the Trim45 in place, we can now grab our tape measure and take a measurement for the length of our trim. So now we can take a piece of our trim and line it up with the markings we created earlier. Once our trim's in line, we can then place our tape measure into one of those slots and get our measurement. In this case, 7 3/8 of an inch. Once we have that measurement of 7 3/8, we can now go over to the miter saw and cut one end of the trim to 45 degrees. Once we have that 45-degree angle cut, we can now go over and take a look at the last physical component of this tool that we haven't covered yet. So we'll take our Trim45 and using this little notch that's cut out on the bottom of the tool, we'll flip the tool around and cradle our trim with that 45-degree angle. It's that little notch on the very bottom of the Trim45 that will allow us to clamp this tool into place on top of our miter. With the tool in place, I can now take my tape measure and place it into that slot and mark out my 7 3/8. Once we have that marking made, we can then take our gauge and set it to 0 and lock it into place. Once we have our tool set to 0, we can flip it around and line it up with our marking at 7 3/8. Then we can strike a line at the 45-degree angle. Once we have our marking, we can now cut our trim to size over at the miter saw. With everything cut to size, you can see how well those corners come together, leaving that 1/4 inch reveal. The only thing left to do is to continue this process doing the other 3 corners. Now the first thing that you might be saying is, holy smokes, that was a lot of steps, and I know I'm going to forget a couple of them.
Way too many steps to remember, all right?
However, this tool comes with detailed instructions that goes over each one of those steps. And it's all about repetition with this tool. You're going to go over each one of those steps 4 times for every single window or every single door that you do. And even though it seems like it's a lot of steps, if you've ever tried to frame out a door or window, you know that it's really time consuming to creep up on those exact measurements. So I really do think that this tool will still be a time saver. So this tool is the Eric Hill wood moisture meter. And the thing that caught my eye about this tool is its size. Let's go take a closer look. So you may have seen my video a couple of weeks ago where I featured this top test moisture meter. And this is my go-to moisture meter whenever I'm going to a sawmill. The thing I like about this moisture meter is the actual color of the screen changes depending on whether or not the wood is usable. If it's not usable, it moves to red. When it is usable, it moves to green. But the only thing I don't like about this moisture meter is it's a little bulky. And that's where we're going to take a look at this new one made by Eric Hill. So whenever I purchased hardwoods, I typically go to my sawmill, and my sawmill's about 2 hours away. Therefore, I can always prepare and remember to bring my top test moisture meter. However, there's a lot of times when we're picking up wood from a big box store, and that's why I like this Eric Hill moisture meter. This thing is about the size of a pen, and it can fit in your glove box. But even though this is a small little guy, this thing packs a powerful punch. Let me have it. That's it? As it's got the same feature that I like so much about that top test moisture meter built inside this small little guy. And that feature is the color-coded backlit screen that lets you know whether or not the wood is ready to be used. So let's turn the lights off and see how this works. So here I've moved to a darker area of my shop, and hopefully you can see there's 2 little prongs at the very top of this moisture meter. And if I place my finger on the very top, you can see how this moisture meter goes from green to yellow to red. And when I take my finger off, it goes back to green. So having such an easy to read small moisture meter that you can fit in your glove box, you can take this with you every time you go to a big box store and check your 2x4s before you take them home. So let's get a little safer over at the miter saw and take a look at this tool made by Fastcap. This is the $10 million stick. And no, it doesn't cost $10 million, but less than $24. And I can tell you right now, I would pay $24 for any one of these fingers. So how does this thing work and what's the structure of it? Well, it really couldn't be more simple. It's got a rubber handle in the very center of it, as well as 3 legs with a rubber pad on each leg. So why 3 legs? Well, the answer is simple. Why does a stable stool have 3 legs or a tripod have 3 legs? This is because 3 legs is much more stable than 4. But not only that, the 3 legs on this tool give you a few options when you're making cuts at the miter saw. Let's go take a look. So the first option is to use the singular leg. And if we wanted to cut this small piece of plywood, we could use that leg and place support right on top of that plywood. And since this thing has 3 legs, not only is the plywood supported with the leg, but the back 2 legs are also very secure. If you have a wider piece of stock, this tool can also be flipped around. And with your wider stock on the miter saw, you can give support with the 2 legs and have the back leg fully supported as well. So this really is an amazing little safety tool. I can't wait to start using it and having a little bit more assurance that all these little guys will just be a little bit safer. So until they make a saw stop miter saw, get one of these so that you can be woodworking for years to come. This is a magnetic micro square made by Fastcap. Let's go check it out. So if we take a look at the Fastcap square and comparing it to the red square, you can see that it's just a little bit larger. Another nice feature of the Fastcap square is it does have imperial markings on one side as well as metric on the other. Another feature that I really like is the lip on the very bottom. This will allow you to rest it against the edge of your workpiece and create those perfectly square angles. Another nice feature of this tool, as the name implies, is it is magnetic. It's got 2 magnets on the very bottom of this tool that allow you to attach it to most metals. So with that metal lip on the bottom, you can be assured that your angles are perfectly square, and in this case, I'm actually going to check for square just to make sure that this thing is accurate. And we can see there's only one line there, so this thing is completely square. But we can also use this square at things like our table saw to make sure that our blade is completely perpendicular to the base of our table. Also, I wanted to mention that the magnetic base of this square maintains magnetic contact with your table. A lot of these magnetic tools don't account for the non-magnetic material of your blade guard. This square also has 2 scales on it. The interior square references the lip of the square, while the exterior square references the bottom of the square. So if you're looking for a small square that can fit in your pocket that has a few more features than the small red square that I recommend, this may be the tool for you. Plus, with this square being less than $25, this thing isn't going to break the bank like a lot of those other red squares. So I'm going to send both of these squares home by putting them in my apron. So if you're a dentist, you're going to absolutely love this tool, as it's a drill bit organizer that looks like teeth. And this thing isn't a gimmick. This is a functional storage solution for your bits. Let's go take a closer look. So out of the box, you can see it comes with these bit holding gums along with a ratcheting screwdriver. Now most adults have 32 teeth, but this thing has 28 bits. So what bits are included with this set? Well, let's go take a closer look. So now that we have the bit holder looking like Grandma and Grandpa, you can see it comes with 9 Phillips head bits, and these come in all different shapes and sizes. It also has 8 flathead bits, as well as 7 star bits, and then 4 Allen bits. Now inside of the gums, you can see there's a metal structure, and that structure is magnetic, so you can place your bits into the gums and they're not going to slide out. Now you may not have heard that as I was placing the bits into the gum, but there's an audible snap, letting you know that that bit is in contact with the magnet. So let's shake this up and see if any of the bits fall out. So I'll give this thing a violent shake and see if any of those bits fall out. And you can see from there, all those bits are right in place. Lastly, let's take a look at the driver. Now I will have to say I'm not too impressed with the handle of this thing, as it is made of plastic. This little driver is a ratcheting driver, however. It allows you to turn clockwise, counterclockwise, as well as have it in a stationary position. Now I do like the fact that this driver is only 3 inches long. This will be perfect for doing installs of things like hinges. However, I suspect I'll revert back to my old drivers when doing other work. So if you like to have fun in your shop, check out this chattering teeth bit holder. I suspect that this thing's going to get a lot more use in your shop than you think. So this little box contains the Easy Woodshop extendable measuring device. Let's open this box and see what it's all about. So I'm not quite sure how this box got damaged, as I totally caught it on my first try. But if we open the box, you can see there's some instructions and a couple of extendable sticks. Let's talk about how this works. So inside the box, you get 2 larger 46-inch extendable measuring sticks, along with a smaller 10-inch extendable measuring stick that kind of looks like a magic wand. So along with the 3 different measuring sticks, you actually get 3 different types of attachments. You have a flat end cap, which I have installed on this measuring stick. You have a pointer, which I have installed on this measuring stick, and you also have an extender, which I'll show you how to use in just a moment. So what exactly are these measuring sticks used for? Well, they're basically an adjustable story pole. This allows you to use your workpiece as a reference versus using a tape measure. So let's take a look at those attachments and see how we can use these sticks in our shop. So the first attachment we're going to take a look at is the attachment with the flat end caps. So let's say I want to figure out the difference between the top of this router cabinet and the bottom of the router cabinet. All I need to do is to take my extendable measuring stick and place it in between those 2 items. Then I can remove my measuring stick and mark my wood.
Wood.
By resting my measuring stick on the piece that I want to cut and making sure the end is completely flush, I can strike my line where I want to make the cut. Then I can go over to the miter saw and make my cut based on that line. And just like that, I have a piece that perfectly fits inside that gap. So what an excellent way to really hone into those measurements without having to use a tape measure. But what if we have a measurement that's beyond the 46 inches of this larger extendable measuring stick? Well, that's where our extension accessory comes into play. Let me show you how it works. So this is the extension accessory. All we need to do is unscrew these end caps and install the extension. So just like that, we've doubled the length of these extendable marking sticks. And with these sticks fully extended with a tape measure next to them, we can figure out how wide they really go. And hopefully you can see here they go about 92.5 inches wide, which is almost 8 feet wide. So this should be able to accommodate almost any measurement you need. But there's one more attachment. Remember I said there's that little pointy thingy? Well, let's take a look and see what that does. So in this case, I'm going to remove the extender from one of these extendable measuring sticks. I'm also going to remove the end cap. Then I'm going to install both of these pointy thingies on each side. So before we use that measuring stick with the points, I want to remind everybody how we check a box for square. We simply line our tape measure diagonally on either corner and figure out the measurement. Then we take the opposite diagonal and make sure that those two measurements are the same. And that can be a little tricky to hook your tape measure on the corner of those boxes just to make sure that each measurement is exactly the same. And that's where this tool is going to come into play. So instead of fighting our tape measure and having it hang off the edge of our box, we can instead take the extendable measuring stick and measure the interior of our box. By placing each point in the corner, we can take a measurement of one corner, remove it, and place it in the other corner. And as you can see from this measurement, it's a little bit short. So this box is out of square. And that's just 3 of the uses of these sticks. I'm sure there's a ton I'm missing, but those are the 3 that these sticks are mainly used for. If you have any other ideas for these sticks, make sure you leave a comment and let us all know so that we can learn from you. So this next tool is the Klein Tools magnetizer. Let's see if this actually works. So this little tool looks like an orange key fob for a car, but it's what's inside this fob that really makes it interesting. Inside are some very strong rare earth magnets, and these are what are going to magnetize our tools. Not only will this magnetize tools, but it will also demagnetize tools. If you want to magnetize a tool, you stick it into the top hole. If you want to demagnetize a tool, you'll stick it into one of the 3 bottom holes. So let's test this out and see if I can get one of my screwdrivers magnetized. So here's my first screwdriver, and as I place it next to those screws, you can see there's no magnetization. However, when I place it into the top hole of this tool, I can place it in there just for a few seconds, pull it out, and now all of a sudden that tool is magnetized. And as you just saw, that only took a couple of seconds. But let's test out the other function of this tool, which is demagnetization. So here I've got my freshly magnetized screwdriver, and now I'm going to place it into the demagnetized hole. And just like that, it's lost its magnetization. Now, one thing you should know as you're either magnetizing or demagnetizing your screwdriver is you can't twist the shaft of that screwdriver as you're placing it into those holes. This will mess with the polarization and you won't get the results you want. So just to show you how easy this process is, I'm going to go through the whole procedure by magnetizing a screwdriver and then demagnetizing it all in one sitting. So here I have my demagnetized screwdriver, and you can see those screws aren't reacting. Now I'll place this screwdriver into the magnetization slot without twisting it or turning it. And I'm just going to put it in there for a couple of seconds. Now you can see that screwdriver is fully magnetized. Now let's demagnetize it. And I'll do the same thing, only placing it into the demagnetization slot. And I'll just place it in there for a couple of seconds without twisting it.
That's what she said.
Michael, please.
And now you can see that screwdriver is not magnetized. And that's borderline magic in my opinion.
Magic, 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 magic.
This will allow you to easily magnetize all your screwdrivers so that you don't have to worry about dealing with your sausage fingers. So inside this box is the aluminum laser etched SAet Pro. Let's take a look at it. So if you're not familiar with the SAet Pro, it's an amazing tool that allows you to easily and quickly determine the angles of anything that your T-bevel is set to. And the nice thing about this tool is it not only helps you figure out those angles for single miter joints, but it also allows you to figure out those more complex double miter joints.
Double trouble!
So how does this thing work? Well, let's go check it out taking a look at the original SAet Pro as well as the new aluminum laser etched one. So here's a look at both SAet Pros. The original one, which is made out of plastic, is on top, and the new one is on the bottom. Now on one side of this tool, you'll have the single miter angles, and if you flip it around, you can see the double mitered angles. Now if we take a look at the new SAet Pro, you'll notice a line running right down the middle, and a little notch at the bottom that's cut out, and this is where you're going to place your T-bevel. And it's this little notch that really makes this tool unique. It allows you to slide your T-bevel in, and whether you're measuring from one side or the other, it's that notch that allows your T-bevel to move freely. To use this tool, you simply slide the tool until it hits the center point of the tool, and then you can get your readout of the angle, in this case just a little over 60 degrees. But you can also use this tool with your T-bevel facing the opposite direction. Let's take a look at that. So if your angle is going the other way, you simply slide your T-bevel over until it hits that center point again. In this case, we have a readout of just over 40 degrees. If we flip the tool around, we can also use this tool for a double miter. Let me show you what that's about. So for those of us that may be a little bit confused about what a double miter is, here's an example. If we take a look at this diagram, you can see that this wall is at 20.5 degrees, and that's exactly what this T-bevel is at. If we look at the readout, you can see the 20.5 degrees, and then we can go over to the miter saw, make the cut at 20.5 degrees, and this will give us a perfect match.
I don't understand any of this!
So if you're in construction or you're building something like a deck that's got a lot of angle, this is the perfect tool to make that job just a little bit easier. So what's the difference between the new aluminum SAet Pro and the old plastic one? Well, there really isn't that much. Let me show you. Really, the only difference that I noticed was this little block in the center of the old SAet Pro. This gave you a positive stop for your T-bevel when you're trying to get your angles. The new one only has a line so that you have to do it visually. So if you find yourself with the T-bevel in your hands a lot, check out the new aluminum SAet Pro. This is a tool that I think will last you a lifetime. So this is the Octopus sanding block. Let's open this block up and take a look at it. So inside the box you get the sanding block itself as well as a little plastic piece that I'll show you what that's for in just a moment. Now this is a 6-inch sander. To give you an idea, this is a 5-inch sanding pad and this is a 6-inch sanding pad. And I want to be clear about this. This is a 6-inch sanding pad. So if you're using a 5-inch orbital sander, those pads will be too small for this device. So what's the functionality of this sander? Well, let's take a look at some of its features. Well, first and foremost, since this is dealing with a 6-inch pad versus a 5-inch pad, you're able to cover a larger area with the sanding block. The next thing that I want to talk about is the handle. It's got a raised handle on it that really allows you to get a grip and more leverage as you're sanding your workpiece. But if you don't like this raised handle, you can easily remove it and have a closer to the surface feel with this sanding block. And if we look at the base of the sander, you can see there's little indentions here where you can place your fingers and really get a good grip on this block. Now, I'm not quite sure why a woodworker would want to do this, but with its raised handle removed, you can stick a large dowel or a small broomstick into the hole of this so that you can get those further to reach places. But for us woodworkers, this is where this little insert comes into play. You can place it into that hole to seal it up. But that's enough about the basics of this tool. If we rotate the handle counterclockwise, you can see that both wings will slide into place and attach with these magnets. And if we take a closer look at the handle of this block, you can see there's little metal plates where these magnets attach. So by turning the handle of this full pad sanding block, we can convert this block into a sander that resembles our beloved mouse sanding block. And with the sanding block in this configuration, you can get into those 90-degree angles that can be very difficult to get into with a regular sanding block. Now, since these wings are very flexible, you could use this for concave or convex sanding. However, I would be hesitant on using it for those features. And the reason I would be hesitant to using this with concave or convex sanding is because neither one of the wings or the center is flexible in any way, shape, or form. And because the base and the wings are rigid, you're most likely going to get lines in your workpiece if you're using it for concave or convex purposes. But if you are using it for those purposes, make sure that you're rotating your sander back and forth so that you don't get those lines. And they really do market this tool as being a concave and convex sanding solution, so just be careful. This is the Gordon Carabiner multi-knife tool. Let's go check it out. So let's take a look at my preferred Husky design versus the Gordon tool. As you can see, you slide the blade out just like a switchblade. To put the blade back, you simply press the knob in the back and it slides back into place. The Gordon tool functions in many of the same ways. You simply slide the knife out, and then when you want to place it back, you simply push this knob right here and slide the knife back into place. So now let's talk about the feel of the blade in your hand. This is one thing that I was a little bit concerned about with the Gordon knife. However, you can see there's 3 notches for your fingers that give you a firm grip on the blade. The Husky knife feels a little bit heavier, and it's also got a contoured profile for your hand. So what about the blades? Are the blades of these 2 knives compatible? And what about switching them out? So one of my biggest complaints about the Husky blade is how you switch out the blade. It's got a small tab at the very back of the blade that you push forward. Then you slide the metal piece out, and you can remove the blade and replace it with a new one. Once you have it replaced, you have to push this tab back in towards the blade, which always makes me a little bit scared. The Gordon blade is much easier to switch out. You simply push this tab right here, and you can slide the blade out and slide the blade back in. Both of these knives use the exact same blades. These are standard blades that you can purchase at any big box store. Now that Gordon knife actually has another feature that Husky knife doesn't have, so let's go look at that. So if we look at the very back of the Gordon blade, you can see there's actually a Phillips head screwdriver as well as a flathead screwdriver. Now let's be honest, it's kind of nice to have those extra features. However, if you're going to screw something in, you're going to grab a screwdriver. So what's my overall impression with this tool? Well, I have to admit, I'm actually surprised at how comfortable of a grip you can get on this knife. I also like the fact that it takes standard blades that you can get at any big box store. Now the screwdriver set, I could take it or leave it. But the most important thing about this knife is I probably only need 1 of these versus the 12 that I had with the Husky. I can clamp this right onto my vest and have it exactly where I need it when I need it. I can just take this bad boy, clamp it onto one of the loops on my vest, and I'll have it with me wherever I go. So this is the MultiFunction Wrench. Let's take a closer look. I'm not sure I want to touch this. So I'm pretty sure this one's made in China, judging by the English on the box. It matches a variety of nuts, but not just a handful, many handfuls. Now, although my wife would probably disagree with me, I typically don't have a handful of nuts. But I do, however, oftentimes have a handful of wrenches, and that's exactly why I got this tool. And it was the design of this tool that really caught my eye, combining 8 wrenches into one tool. And here's what this tool looks like. As you can see, the handle is directly in the middle with the larger sockets on one side and the smaller on the other. And this wrench is designed to accommodate a variety of different sized nuts, including 3/4 inch, 11/16, 5/8, 9/16, 1/2, 7/16, 3/8, and 5/16. Not only that, but it can also accommodate a variety of different shaped nuts. The real power of this wrench comes in the unique way you change the size of the socket. You simply rotate the socket and it locks into place into any size you need. And that's kind of the real power of this tool. I'm notorious for grabbing the wrong wrenches that I need, going over to my workspace and finding out that I grabbed the wrong ones, only to go back to my toolbox and grab another one that's still not the right size. But with this tool, I can simply take one tool with me, test to see if it fits, rotate, and test again until I find the exact fit I need. And the metal on this tool is magnetic, giving you assurance that you're not going to lose your nuts as you're placing them onto your bolts. Not to mention it's got that comfortable rubber grip right in the middle to give you full control. And all this for less than $15. So if you're in the market for an 8-in-1 multifunctional wrench, this may be the tool for you. So this is the item that we're going to be taking a look at first today. In order to be able to tell you what the name of this item is, I need to refer back to my purchase history. This is a 3D Woodworking Tools multi-angle measuring ruler, square size woodworking rulers, 3-dimensional items measuring gift for carpenters with center scribing marking tool. Well, that sure is a mouthful. Sounds like this tool can do a lot of things, so let's go see what it can do. So first off, let's take a look at the construction of this tool. This tool is made of aluminum and it's got markings on both faces of the tool. It's got markings for measurements, angles, and it even has holes for scribing lines. So this tool comes in imperial and metric, so depending on which scales you use, this tool can accommodate it. Since I don't have a whole lot of metric tools, I chose to go with metric on this one. So the first thing that I like about this tool is it's got a wide face on both sides. This gives it all sorts of stability as you rest it against the edge of your workpiece and run it up and down. If we look at the first face of this tool, you can see there's little holes that allow you to scribe lines for each millimeter going from 0 all the way up to 55 millimeters. If we push the tool down, you can also see there's an angle finder with notches cut out at 30, 45, and 60 degrees. If we continue to look at the first side, you can see there's a ruler on the very edge of the tool that goes from 0 all the way up to 155 millimeters. This ruler also has a lip so you can rest it against the edge of your workpiece so that you can get really accurate markings. There's also another ruler that's perpendicular to the first ruler that allows you to make tick marks before you go ahead and scribe out your lines. And that's only one face of this tool. There's another face that we need to take a look at that's really got some unique features. The first thing that you'll notice is there's another angle finder on this face that also has the 30, 45, and 60 degree hash marks. But you can see along the edge of this tool there's even more angles that this thing can accommodate. It goes from 0 degrees at the very top of the tool, running down all the angles with a hash mark at each degree, going all the way up to 90 degrees. If we continue to look at the face of this tool, you can also see there's a little hash mark that allows you to make tick marks anywhere from 5 millimeters all the way up to 45 millimeters. Next to that, there's two holes that allow you to create markings for dovetails at the 1:7 ratio or the 1:5 ratio. Lastly, at the very top of this tool, you'll see little holes, and this is actually a drill bit gauge. This will be perfect for me as these are in metric. So if I have an imperial drill bit, I can figure out which metric size is the closest to my imperial. So what's the damage on this beauty? Well, this thing is less than $17. So if you work in something like imperial, this might be a great tool to get in metric so that you have something you can reference that's in metric when you need it. Or if you're in metric, you might want to get an imperial one of these so that you can have a handy tool that you can go back and forth between the measurements without a whole lot of effort.
Who uses metric?
Every single country on the planet except for us, Liberia, and Burma.
Wow, really?
Yep.
Because you never think of those other two as having their shit together.
So this tool is the aluminum circle drawing and scribe tool made by CDIY Tool. So here's a look at the tool itself. As you can see, there's a small hole on the very end, and this is where you put the center of your circle. There's also 3 other holes that allow you to determine your radius so that you can scribe your circles. You may have also noticed that there's a couple of knobs on the tool as well. Let's take a look at those. So the larger knob on top allows you to adjust your sliding scale ruler. And as you can see, there's metric on the bottom and imperial on the top. Once you have your desired measurement, you can lock down the tool by turning the knob and use one of the 3 scribe holes to scribe your circle. But there's also a smaller metal knob at the very end. Let's take a look at that. So this actually isn't a knob at all. It's actually onboard storage for a center pin so that you can scribe your circle. Once you determine where you want your circle to be, you simply slide the pin into the end, and then you can use the scribing holes to create your circle. So I'm going to test this jig out and draw a 2-inch, 4-inch, and 6-inch circle and see how it turns out. So since we're dealing with radiuses here, at 1 inch, this will produce a 2-inch circle. So I'll place the pin in the very center and give it a little bit of a press. Once I have the pin in place, I then can place my pencil into one of the holes and scribe out the circle. Now that I have my 1-inch radius circle drawn, I now can adjust the knob and adjust the measurement to 2 inches to create my 2-inch radius circle. Then it's just a matter of taking my pencil and scribing out the circle. Now that I have the 1-inch and 2-inch radius circles drawn, I can now adjust this tool so that I can create my 3-inch radius. To do this, I'll actually take the knob, loosen it up, and slide the tool back into place so that I can use the second scribing hole, which is right at 3 inches. I'll have to say that was probably some of the easiest circles I've ever drawn with a tool. The hardest part is getting your pencil lead into those tiny small scribe holes. And if I place my center scale ruler right on top of these circles, you can see how accurate they are. But there's also one more available use for this tool, and that's as a scribing tool. Let me show you how that works. So first off, we'll take the center pin and place it into its onboard storage by screwing it in. Next up, let's say we want to scribe a line following the contours of this mallet handle. To do this, we simply take the tool and place it right up against that mallet. Now we want to scribe the line at 3 inches, so we'll place our pencil right into that hole and follow the tracings of that mallet handle. And here you can see the scribed line 3 inches away that follows the contours of that mallet handle. And both for the radius of the circle as well as your scribed lines, you can adjust this tool out to 7.5 inches away from the center of the tool. And if we take the mallet handle and place it right on top of that scribed line, you can see how well it follows the contours of that mallet handle. So once again, for a tool that's less than $17, I think this tool has a lot of potential to get a lot of use in my shop. So this next tool is a Carabiner bit holder for your impact driver. And this set comes with 2 Carabiners, each with 6 bit holders. So you're all familiar with how easy it is to switch out a bit on your impact driver. You simply slide it in, pull out on the tab, and then that bit is locked into place. And that little locking mechanism is exactly how this bit holder works. You simply slide your bit into place, pull out on the tab, and then your bit is locked into place. But what about the bits that don't have this little knob that allow you to lock it into place? Well, these little bit holders are actually magnetic. You can take those bits and pull up on the tab, and those bits will be sucked in and locked into place. So now the only thing left to do is to load this bit holder with my favorite bits. So now with all your bits in one place, all your favorite bits are organized and easily within arm's reach. And once again, I've got just the spot for this guy on my apron. This is the gel bow. Let's unwrap this and see what it does. Well, my first impressions of this tool is it reminds me of something, and I'm not going to say what. Remember this video? But in all seriousness, this is an impact driver extender. Not only will this go 90 degrees, but will actually go a full 180 degrees. So this drill and driver extender can really accommodate any angle. You can hit it at 90 degrees, or you can add a little Viagra and make it go straight ahead. If you add a lot of Viagra, it will go all the way up. So unlike the DeWalt, which is limited to only 90 degrees, the gel bow can accommodate the 90 degrees or anything in between. I also like the fact that it's a little bit longer so it can reach just a little bit further. So the gel bow allows you to really go deep whether you're drilling or driving. You can also use this gel bow with a drill. If you have drill bits with a hexagonal base, you can slide it right into the tip of that and attach your drill. But by far the best features of this tool are its extendable reach and its range of motion. So if you're having a hard time reaching those tight spots with your impact driver or drill, this thing will do the trick. So this thing is the woodworking gap gauge. Let's see what's inside this box. So this is the tool itself. You can see on the right hand side there's a bunch of little teeth, and when this thing is fully shut it's at 1/8 of an inch. On the very top there's imperial measurements going from 0 all the way up to 1.5 inches. At the very bottom it's millimeters going from 0 to 35 millimeters. On the back of the tool you'll see there's a little knob that allows you to loosen it and tighten it. And this allows you to move it back and forth. So what does this little tool do? Well, as the name implies, it's a gap gauge. Let me show you how it works. So let's take a look at its first of 2 functions. As you can see here, I have a small dado cut into this piece of wood, and I have no idea how thick this dado is. But by loosening the knob on the top, I can place this tool into the dado. Then I can take the 2 arms of the tool and separate them so that they reach each side of the dado. Then I'll lock down the top. With the tool locked down, I now can remove the tool and take a look at the measurement. This is 21 millimeters wide or 13/16 of an inch wide. With this measurement, I now know that my stock needs to be that thick in order to fit into this dado. But as I said before, this tool has 2 features. Let's take a look at that second feature, which is almost the exact opposite of what we just did. So instead of having to figure out how wide our stock needs to be to fit into a dado, what if we need to figure out how wide our dado needs to be to fit our stock? Well, that's when we need to flip this tool around and focus on this gap in the back. We'll loosen the knob and open up the gap, then we can place our stock into that gap. We'll push on both sides and tighten the knob. With our stock firmly gripped in the gap on the back, we can flip our tool around to get the measurement of our stock. And in this case, it's right at 1 inch. Now that we know the measurement of our stock, we can then go over to the table saw or the router and create the perfect size dado. So this is a pretty cool little tool. I like tools that are simple like this so you don't have to relearn them every time you use them. Well, it's the Hold Bubble Sharpening Angle Guide. Let's unbox this and see what it does. So this is about as small as it gets in my shop. This thing looks like a little Matchbox car or a Hot Wheel.
Hey man! Remember that time we got kicked out of biology for playing with Matchbox cars? Yeah! Second base! Get out!
If we look closer at the tool, you can see there's angle markings for 45, 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, and 15. If we flip the tool around, there's magnets on the other side. This allows it to attach to metals, specifically your plane blade or your chisels. So how exactly does this angle guide work? Well, let's look a little closer. So first off, there's a little level in the center of the tool. The next thing that we need to do is to open the tool. Once the tool is open, we can then set our angle by moving the gauge to the desired angle. In this case, I'm going to go with 35 degrees. Once the tool is set to 35 degrees, we can then turn the tool around and place it on our blade, and it clamps right onto that blade. And you can see the level now comes into play. And it's that bubble in the middle of the level that really gives us a visual representation of how we're holding our blade. If that bubble is directly in the center of the level, you know that you're holding your blade correctly. So by making sure that that bubble is directly in between the two lines, we then can begin to sharpen our blade. But not only will this work for plain blades, but you can also use it for chisels. By looking at your level, you can make sure that your starting angle is appropriate. And you can also stop it along the way just to make sure that you're continuing that angle. Now theoretically, you can use this sharpening gauge to sharpen your knives as well. But since this is a woodworking channel, we're going to stick to plain blades and chisels. So if you don't want to spend a lot of money and you're getting into freestyling the sharpening of the blades in your shop, this can be a great tool to give you that visual confirmation that you're at the right angles. And for under $7, this really is a no-brainer for somebody like me. I'm getting into hand tools, and this will allow me to really dial in my angles and make sure that all my sharpening techniques are getting better over time. So the first tool that we're going to take a look at today is the Swanson Framing Wizard. Let's unbox this and see all of its features. So inside the box, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get the framing square itself, as well as a little lip. It also comes with a little tightening screw, as well as an Allen key. So first off, let's talk about the convenience of this square. Instead of having to carry around a cumbersome framing square that you can't fit in your toolbox, this Swanson square will fold together and you can place it right in your toolbox. Now this square only comes in imperial markings, so if you're using metric, you may need to think about getting a different square. As I said before, having lips on squares is really important to me. And guess what? This one's got one.
If you want men to like you, you must have beautiful lips.
So as I place the square onto the workpiece, you can see that it's fully supported by this little lip. So some of you might be concerned, since this has moving parts, is this thing actually square? Well, let's check. So I'll take this square on a scrap piece of plywood and strike a line. Then I can flip the square over and test for square. And you can see there's just one line, so this square is square. But what if your square isn't square, or you drop it on the ground and you knock it out of alignment? Well, you remember that Allen key? This is something I've never seen in any other square. If you have seen this, let me know in the comments. At the very end of the square, there's a little hole where you can stick your Allen key. This allows you to make micro adjustments either left or right to make your square exactly square. But there's also a bunch of other features that this square. Let's take a look at some of them. So first off, this square has little markings on the interior of the square. These allow you to use this scale right here to figure out the pitch of a roof. Secondly, I'm sure almost all of you have a T-bevel in your shop, but I can guarantee you that you don't have one this big. This is 17.5 inches on the bottom and 16 inches on the top. This large frame is perfect for home improvement projects where you're trying to determine the angle of things like flooring or tiling. But there's one last feature that I want to show you before we move on. Remember that little tab? Well, if you wanted to scribe a line right at 6 inches, you could lock that tab down right at 6 inches. Then you can place your pencil in that corner and scribe your line. And once you're done with this tool, it's as easy as removing that tab and placing it on the lip. You can lock it onto the lip, fold it up, and take it to wherever you need to go. So this is the Micro Jig blade and bit cleaning system. Let's check it out. So this is obviously a pretty unique looking accessory. This is designed to help clean your blades as well as your router bits. The more you use a saw blade or a router bit on wood, the more it's going to accumulate a lot of particles. Not only that, but the sap or the resin of the wood is really going to degrade those blades and make them duller over time. So a quick and easy way to refresh your blades and bits is to clean them, and that's what this tool is all about. So let's take a closer look at this cleaner and see how it works. If we do a bird's eye view, you'll notice that there's a few accessories that have a home right on the top of this tool. Now to me, this is a great feature, especially for a tool that you're not going to be using on a daily basis. Having all those accessories on the lid of this tool is going to prevent you from losing them. If we dig into these accessories, you'll see that there's a magnetic handle. On the right hand side, there's the wire brush. On the top, you'll find a rotary tool mandrel, and at the very bottom, you're going to find the aluminum oxide router bit cleaning discs. You probably also noticed that big green round circle in the middle. Let's unscrew that and see what's inside. If we unscrew that top, you're going to find the router bit cleaning well. And it's this well that's going to hold your cleaning solution or your degreaser to clean your router bits. If we look at the underside of the lid, you'll see that there's 5 holes. There's 3 holes that can accommodate 1/2 inch shank bits, as well as 2 holes that will accommodate your 1/4 inch shanks. Now that we've taken a look at the top, let's open this up and see what's on the inside. You'll first notice that there's 2 latches on either side of the unit to keep that cleaning solution secure when it's not in use. Once both sides are unlatched, you can see inside is the blade cleaning well as well as the blade clean pad. And that's about all there is to the physical construction of this Micro Jig system. But how do you use this thing? Well, luckily for you, I've got some dirty blades as well as some router bits. Actually, I'm pretty sure I don't have any clean ones. So let's first start off by cleaning the saw blade that's actually on my table saw. Now before we do anything, you're going to need some cleaner. And in my case, I just bought a gallon of Simple Green. And any all-purpose cleaner should work. You just have to make sure that it's not corrosive or something like an oven cleaner. Once we have the cleaner, we now need to fill the 2 wells. We first need to fill the router well, and this takes about 16 to 20 ounces. There's also a fill line for a visual cue. After we fill that, we'll lock the green lid in place so that we can fill the saw well. After that, we can take off the top and place it to the side. With that top removed, we can pour the remaining solution into the saw well. Now that we have both wells filled, let's grab the saw blade from my table saw for cleaning. So for this process, I'm going to grab that magnetic handle from the top of the lid. Then I can raise my saw blade and remove that arbor nut. Then I can use that magnetic handle to easily remove that blade. Now it's going to be a good idea to have a towel ready for this process so that we don't make a mess. I'll place my blade right on top of that towel and let's take a look at how dirty this blade is. Now it might be a little bit difficult to see, but you can really see the residue build up on the side of each one of these teeth, and that's what we're going to try to clean up. You'll also see build up on the inside of the teeth, especially right before the gullet. In theory, by removing this residue, we should be able to get a cleaner cut, so let's get to it. The first thing that I want to do is to take that magnetic handle and place it right across the center of that blade. Now that the blade's attached, I'm going to place it into the cleaning solution and make sure it's fully submerged for about 10 to 30 seconds. Once that time is up, you now want to rotate the blade in the opposite direction of the cut for 1 full turn, making sure you're applying slight downward pressure towards the cleaning pad. Once we have one side clean, we can now remove it and place it onto our towel. Then we can remove the magnetic handle, flip the blade over, and attach it to the other side. Once that's done, we'll repeat the process by submerging the other side of the blade. And after that time's up, we'll once again rotate the blade in the opposite direction of the cut. Now we could remove this blade and call it clean. However, there is one optional thing you can do as well. And that's to simply take the blade out and spin the teeth in the opposite direction of the cut on the bottom pad. So now that all that's done, let's take this out and take a look at the results on this towel. And I'll have to say, I am blown away. All that residue that was on all the outside of those teeth is completely gone. This blade looks brand new. Well, that is certainly impressive. I honestly thought this was a gimmick, but after seeing those results, I'm going to do this to the rest of my blades. But we're not done yet. That's only half the functionality of this cleaning tool, so let's clean some router bits. To do this, I first want to reattach that lid to the saw well. After that, we can unlock and take off the router well lid. Now let's take a look at some of the router bits we'll be cleaning. Just like with the saw blades, you can see all that residue and buildup on the inside of the blade as well as the outside of the bit. And today I've got 2/4 inch shank bits as well as 1/2 inch shank. The first thing that I'll do is I'll slide the bits into the appropriate holes on the bottom of the lid. With those bits in place, I'll now take them and place them into that router well. While those bits are soaking, I'm now going to grab a drill or a rotary tool. Now that I have my drill, I'm now going to grab the mandrel as well as one of these cleaning discs. And we're just going to add that cleaning disc to the mandrel by unscrewing the mandrel and adding the cleaning disc. With that cleaning brush attached, I can now add it to my drill or my rotary tool. And now that our bits have soaked for a while, I can now remove them from the router well and spot clean them with the cleaning brush. And the lid from the router well makes a great way to hold the bits as you clean them. Now that all those bits are clean, let's take a closer look. Once again, I'm completely blown away at how well this cleaning tool works. The blades on these bits look completely clean and polished, and they look better than they have in years. In fact, they look brand new. Now the only accessory that I didn't really use is that steel brush, and that's just to get some of those more stubborn areas. In fact, I might even save this for Bert. I think his teeth could use a good cleaning. Lastly, another advantage of this cleaning system is you can store all of that cleaning solution in the tool until you need it next time. Well, unfortunately, I had to buy it to believe it. This micro jig system is not a gimmick. In fact, it's so good, it's going to become part of my regular maintenance routine, and hopefully over the long run, it'll actually save some money on blades and bits. So this next tool is the gypsum board cutting machine. Let's unbox this and check it out. So inside the box, you'll get the tool itself along with the oddly shaped pencil. Once you get this pencil, throw it out immediately. This thing is junk. The good news is the tool will actually hold a regular pencil. Now obviously, as the name implies, this tool was designed for cutting drywall. However, I do think there's some valuable uses for this tool in woodworking. So let's take a look at some of these features. So first off, you'll notice that I replaced the pencil with a grease marker. I think this is a better choice for this tool. If we look at the side of the tool, you can see that there's two levers. The lever on top actually engages a razor. If we look at the bottom lever, this allows you to unlock and lock down a tape measure. If we look at the handle of this tool, you can see there's some onboard storage for some razors. If we look at the tape measure, you can see that the tab is much larger. This allows you to rest it against the edge of your workpiece to give you some more support. So how are we going to use this funky tool?
Hey ladies! Get funky.
Well, let's grab a piece of plywood and I'll show you how I'm going to be using it. So with the razor not engaged, you can simply slide out your tape measurement to find the measurement that you need. Then you can clip the tape measure on the edge of your workpiece. Once that's done, you can simply scribe your line. And the tape measure on this thing is a full 16 feet long, so you can tackle almost any measurement.
Hey, Laura.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, buddy.
Whoa! You know you can't bring that weak ass stuff up in this Humpty Bumpy. You killed it, Joe. You make some more. You know that, baby.
But what if we want to be just a little bit more precise? Well, that's where that razor comes into play. Now, the thing that I like about having a razor to scribe your lines is it will actually cut all the fibers of the plywood. This leaves you with a cleaner cut when you go to put a saw to it. Another cool feature that this tool allows you to do is to create circles and arches. By putting your tape on the edge of your workpiece, you can create any arch that you want. And I know not all of us do woodworking all the time, so if you are doing some drywall work, this will be the tool for you. Now, this thing isn't the most accurate tool by any means, but it will get the job when you're rough cutting out your lumber. So if you're having some problems making those longer markings on your workpieces, this may be the tool for you. So this is a 2-pack of benchtop coasters. Let's unbox this and see what it's all about. So this 2-pack of coasters is made by Sunco, and you can see from the bottom of this coaster it's got 4 rubber feet to protect your surfaces. It also has a variety of tools that we'll take a closer look at. So first off, it's got a bottle opener on it, which is great to open those cold beverages. But not only does it have a bottle opener, but it also has hex wrenches running down the entire side. You can also see there's a ruler in centimeters as well as inches on the opposite side. If we look at the bottom of this tool, you can see there's an eyeglass screwdriver, a wire cutter, as well as some spoke wrenches. If we look at the side that has the ruler in inches, you can see there's little holes for dividers. There's also a butterfly wrench at the very bottom. Alongside of that, each corner either has a flathead screwdriver or an opener or cutter. So let's be honest, am I going to use any of those tools? Probably not. However, is this a fun little gadget to have in your shop to protect those cast iron surfaces? Absolutely. And for me, that's what woodworking is all about, having a little fun in your shop. So I scoured the internet to see if there was some tool that could hold my tape measure in place, and that's when I found the SAet tape measure tool. So let's go see how this works. So this tool really couldn't be any more simple. It reminds me of those magnets that we used to hang on our fridge to hold up our artwork. So how do we use this tool? Well, it's basically a tape measure clip. Let's take a closer look and check out some of its attributes. So it's probably a little bit difficult to see, but on the side there's 2 different types of measurements. There's inches and centimeters. This thing is 2 inches long as well as 65 millimeters. If we squeeze the spring-loaded clamp, this allows us to place our tape measure right into the device. With our clamp in place, it easily allows us to get the measurements on 90-degree angles. This device also lets you get measurements on acute angles as well. Not only that, but this clamp has just enough weight to hold your tape measure in place when you're making your longer measurements. Now I know this isn't a tool that you're going to need every single day. However, it is a nice little convenience tool. And as much as I love gadgets, I had to pick one up. And this little clip is less than $10 for 2 of them. So if you have a need for this, go check it out. So this next tool is the 8-inch bionic wrench. Let's open it up and see what it can do. So this next tool was featured in Popular Mechanics and really is quite an ingenious design. If I squeeze the handles together, you can see how this tool will engage with the bolt. So here you can see I've got 2 different size nuts as well as a lag screw. And you can see how this tool easily adjusts to each one of these items very quickly. Not only is this tool easily adjustable, but it also has a nice firm rubber grip that feels good on the hand. If we look at this chart here, you can see that this tool can accommodate 1/2 inch all the way up to 3/4 of an inch. If you're in metric, it can go from 12 millimeters all the way up to 20 millimeters. So by my calculations, that's 14 wrenches in one tool, which is really quite amazing. So if you're looking to eliminate some tools in your toolbox or just stop the guessing game, this might be the tool for you. Not to mention, this has a lifetime warranty and is made in the USA. So this next tool is a mini drill guide surprisingly made by Big Gator Tools. Let's go check it out. So in the past, I've featured 2 drill guides, including this Craig drill guide along with the MultiFunction drill block. The problem with these drill guides is they only go from 1/2 of an inch all the way down to 1/8 of an inch. The problem is, if you take a look at my drill bits, you can see I have a lot of drill bits that go well below the 1/8 of an inch. So how do we get these smaller bits perfectly lined up so that they're going completely perpendicular to your workpiece? Well, that's where we need to take a look at this little tool made by Big Gator. So here you can see the size comparison of this mini drill guide versus the Craig drill guide as well as the MultiFunction drill block. The nice thing about this drill guide is it picks up where those other 2 left off. If we take a closer look at the drill guide, you can see there's 21 holes here that allow you to use your smaller drill bits. If we look right here, this is 1/8 of an inch, which is where those other drill guides left off. It goes all the way down to 3/64 of an inch. But we also need to see the underside of this tool to see its full functionality.
Personally, before I'm on the job, I like to give my undercarriage a bit of a how's your father.
And that's because this is a mini V drill guide. If we take a look at the back, you can see there's a V notch cut out, and this is perfect for stabilizing things like dowels. But for me, the real value of this tool is being able to stabilize your drill bit when drilling small pilot holes for things like hinges or anything that needs a small screw. So let's test this tool out with one of my smallest drill bits at 1/16 of an inch. So first off, let's test this V-guide and drill a 1/16 of an inch hole into this dowel. And here you can see both of those drill holes drilled right into the center of this dowel. Now the only thing that I found just a little bit difficult was making sure that you get your bit into the correct hole.
You've got your dipstick in the wrong hole.
Now using the same bit, let's drill a couple of holes into this plywood. And it might be difficult to see, but here are the two small holes that I just drilled. Now obviously in dealing with smaller drill bits like this, you're going to have a little bit of flex in the drill bit itself. But with its hefty steel construction, it gives you about as much support as you can expect from a small drill guide like this. Lastly, if we look on the side of the tool, you can see there's little notches here to make sure that you're hitting your hole exactly where you want it to be. So if you're looking for just a little bit more support for those smaller drill bits, this little tool made by Big Gator has got you covered. So our first tool today is the @UMan Mini Q. Let's unbox this and see what it's all about. So inside the box, you're going to get the measuring device itself, which is this little round thing, along with the USB-C cord to keep this thing charged. Now in order to understand how this device works, we first need to take a look at the physical components of the tool. So let's do that right now. If we set the device on its side, you'll see there's a little wheel on the very bottom. This allows you to place it onto your wood so that you can slide it backwards and forwards to get your measurements. There's also a little light on the very bottom along with a little notch so that you can reference your work material so that you know where you're starting and stopping. If we look at the front of the device, you can see there's 3 different buttons. If we press and hold the center button, this will turn the device on. The left arrow and the right arrow allow you to scroll through different modes and historical measurements. So first off, let's talk about the setup of this tool. This tool allows you to go to metric as well as imperial so you can do your measurements either in inches or centimeters.
You do realize the imperial system is so inefficient that even American drug dealers have switched over to metric.
Now that we know this tool can handle both imperial and metric, I now want to show you some of the functions of this tool. In order to do that, I want to take this piece of pine and measure it the old-fashioned way. And with my trusty tape measure, you can see this is just a little bit over 48 inches long. So the first measuring mode is simply just to run it across the board. In order to do that, I take that little lit hash mark and I run it from one side to the other. And here you can see we're right at 48 inches. Now that was pretty accurate, and I know it was a shorter distance. Now one of the things that you're going to have to be really careful with this tool is making sure that you walk a straight line across the length of your measurement. You may also be asking, how long can you measure with this device? Well, you can go about 100 meters or 328 feet. But frankly, I think it would be quite difficult to walk a straight line 328 feet with this device. So this device is really for those smaller measurements. So now let's take a look at the second function, which comes in handy when you're dealing with something that impedes your measurement, like a wall.
Oh, yeah.
So here I've got that same 48-inch board, and I've got some Purple Heart butted right up against that board. Now I'm going to take my measuring device and set it so that I know that I'm dealing with a wall. Once I have that setting, I can place it right up against the wall and do the run all the way across the board. And once again, we're right at 48 inches. So obviously in this mode, this tool is going to calculate the distance from the very edge of the circle to the center of the tool and add that into your measurement. But what if you're dealing with 2 walls and you want to get the exact measurement in between those 2 walls? Well, this tool has a mode for that as well. So here I have the same 48-inch piece of wood. On one side I have some Purple Heart, and on the other side I have some cherry. These 2 pieces of wood will simulate the walls. With the tool in the right mode, I'll take the measurement. And once again, we're right at 48 inches. So just like with the 1-wall setting, this tool in the 2-wall setting will take the measurement from the center of the tool to the edge on both sides and add that to your measurement. Now there's one last mode, which is the radius or diameter mode. This allows you to go around the circumference of a circle to determine the radius or diameter. Now this is a nice little feature, however I don't suspect it's too easy to keep this tool on the circumference of a circle, so I'm guessing that the accuracy and precision of determining the radius or the diameter isn't that great. But we'll give it a try here and take a measurement on this 10-inch circle. I'll set the tool to the radius mode and we'll take the measurement. And here we have 10.9 inches, which is a little bit off. Now I suspect this tool does a better job on larger circles. However, from tracing out that smaller circle, I can tell you that it's quite difficult to trace out those circles. So I'm guessing that I'm mostly going to use this tool for straight measurements. Now a couple of other things to consider is you need to keep the wheel very clean. So before you take any measurements, it's a good idea to dust off that wheel.
I knocked the dust off that.
But all in all, I'm pretty impressed with this unique little high-tech gadget. This will be perfect to throw into your pocket when you go to the lumberyard to do some rough measurements on your material. Would I use this to lay out lines when making furniture? Probably not. However, with its compact design, it's perfect for on the go when you need a quick measurement. So our first tool today is the Holstry Magmaster. Let's take a look at this and see how it works. So the design of this tool really couldn't be any more simple. It's got a strong magnet on one side as well as a clip on the other. The clip is meant to be put on something like your belt or the elastic of your pants. And that clip can accommodate a belt as wide as 1 3/4 of an inch, and that's quite a hefty belt.
Oh yeah, doing the thing, yeah.
So how does this thing work? Well, it's really quite ingenious. Well, as you know, every tape measure has some metal in it. Whether it's the case itself, the clip on the back, or the tape measure has a magnet, these things can attach to this device. Even some tape measures that appear to be all plastic typically have a steel blade inside. So are there any tape measures that won't work with this Magmaster? Well, I tested each one of my 28 tape measures and each one attached easily with no problems at all. But how strong is that magnet? Because I have some pretty heavy ones. Well, to answer your question, I'm actually wearing my heaviest tape measure right now, and that thing's on there and isn't going anywhere. And you can really see the power of this magnet as I place my tape measure above the Magmaster.
Wow, that was so powerful.
So if you're looking for an easy way to have your tape measure on you at all times, either on your belt or your work vest, without having to make any alterations to your current tape measure, the Magmaster may be the solution for you. So this next item is the DuraGold Firm & Flex Longboard Sanding Block. Let's get into this box and I'll show you how it works. So since the hand plane is such a comfortable design when smoothing out wood, this thing took a lesson from it. And as you can see, this thing looks almost identical to a hand plane, only it's a sanding block. If we look on the back side of this sanding block, you can see there's the hook and loop system. Now, since this tool can use a hook and loop system, you're going to need a special type of sandpaper. This thing is 2 3/4 of an inch wide by 15.5 inches long. And I'm going to register one complaint with DuraGold. They did not provide one sample piece of sandpaper for this sanding plane. Now, I've never purchased a sander, either manual or electric, that didn't provide at least one piece of test sandpaper. Now, I should have read the fine print and realized that this didn't come with sandpaper. So I had to get on Amazon and purchase a $20 set of sandpaper. So I'm not going to be able to show you exactly how this works. However, we are going to go over the functionality of it. Now, we already mentioned that this sanding block accommodates hook and loop sandpaper. However, DuraGold actually sells adhesive back sandpapers in rolls, which is much cheaper. So they give you an extra pad that attaches onto that hook and loop so that you can attach that adhesive back sandpaper. Now, the title of this tool is the Firm & Flex Hand Sanding Block, and there's a reason for this. With its plastic base, it's quite firm. However, if you do need to make some concave or convex curves, you can do it with this sanding block. Now, the reason I purchased this sanding block was so that I could smooth out those larger surfaces. This will be perfect for hand sanding things like tabletops. Since it's 2 3/4 inches wide and 15.5 inches long, this will make smoothing out your tabletops a breeze. And since the design of this sanding block is taken from a hand plane with the knob and the tote, you know that you're going to get even coverage and great control with this tool. So if you're looking for a way to get fast and even coverage on a larger surface area, this sanding block may be the tool for you. So inside this box is the SAet wood ruler positioning tool. Let's go see if it makes a decent nubbin. So inside this box, you'll find the brass and steel alloy positioning tool. Now there's not a whole lot to talk about with this tool, as the construction and the design is pretty simple, but let's take a closer look. If we look at the side profile, you can see a little slot where you slide your ruler in. To tighten your ruler onto the tool, you simply twist the knob on top. Now this collar is designed for a ruler that's 1 inch to 1 1/8 inches wide. You're also looking for a ruler that's less than 1/16 of an inch thick. Once you have your ruler, you simply slide it into the slot and lock it down with a knob on the top. Once you have your measurement, in this case 2 inches, you use it in the same fashion you do a pocket rule. And I've used this ruler guide as well as the Polini pocket rule, and there's very little difference between the two tools. In fact, I would consider this ruler guide just a little bit more stable, as it's 1/4 of an inch longer than the standard Polini pocket rule. And that 1/4 of an inch makes a big difference when you're trying to keep your ruler stable when you're taking your longer measurements. So if you're looking for a cheaper alternative to the Polini pocket rule, or you just want to convert some of your old rulers to pocket rules, this is a great option. And it would make a great stocking stuffer for the woodworker in your life. This solution is the hand sanding contour file stick set. Let's unbox this and I'll show you what it's all about. So here's what comes in the box. You can see that there's 3 sanding files, each with different widths. There's also 60, and I repeat, 60 different sanding pads.
You cannot be serious.
These sanding pads range in grits all the way from 60 up to 600 grit. Now this just blows my mind. Why would that sanding kit come with 60 sanding pads when the same sanding kit made by the same company doesn't even come with 1 pad? But I suppose that's a question for another day. Let me show you how these sanding files work. So each one of these sanding pads has a little bit different thickness. The smallest one has about 1/4 of an inch thickness. If we move on to the middle one, this is about 3/8 of an inch wide. The largest one is just a tad over 3/8 of an inch wide. The smallest file has the hooks attached directly to the file. If we look at the 2 larger files, you can see there's a little bit of padding there that gives you a little bit of give. Attaching the sandpaper works like any other hook and loop system. You simply attach the sandpaper, wrap it around, and then you can cut off the excess. And with that excess of sandpaper, you should be able to get a minimum of 2 uses on each sheet of sandpaper. With the sandpaper in place, it allows you to easily get into tight spots that you normally can't get into with normal sanding blocks. A sanding block like this might be perfect for cleaning up saw blade marks on things like dados or rabbits. But most importantly, these little sanding files can get you into those tight spots that you may avoid altogether when finishing up your projects. Lastly, the contoured foam handle really is comfortable to hold and gives you all the control you need when getting into those tight spots. So if you're like me and you hate getting into those tight spots with ordinary sandpaper, check out these Duragold sanding files. These might be the solution for you. So this next tool is the SAet finger magnet. Let me show you how this works. So this silly contraption is the woodworker's version of a finger puppet.
These are my little woodshop finger puppets.
It slides right onto your finger and it's got a powerful magnet on the very tip of it. On the very bottom of the finger glove, it's got a little pull tab that allows you to slide it onto your finger. Now the question is that little magnet strong enough to pull up things like that arbor nut? Well, let's go test it out. Every time I do this, I feel like I'm giving my table saw a prostate exam.
Guys seldom need more than this.
But if you see, I can pull that nut right off with the tip of my finger. Now I'll have to say this isn't the most powerful magnet in the world, but it does get the job done if you have a piece of metal that's just out of reach. Other great solutions for problems like this are your telescoping magnets or your extendable claws so that you can get those arbor nuts. And I'll store this finger glove with those other 2 items so that I have another solution for those hard to reach items. So this item is the SAet Pro multi-purpose magnet. Let's unbox this and I'll show you what it's all about. So the first thing that I noticed is that the packaging for this item was very nice. Everything was wrapped in foam and very secure. The second thing that I noticed about this tool is this thing is very hefty. This guy's a big dog.
Hey, is it me, or does this place smell like Updog?
What's Updog?
Gotcha!
In fact, the footprint of this magnet is probably about 10% larger than the magnet that I've lost. And part of that may be due to the fact that this thing has 180 pounds of magnetic force. That's 15 more pounds than my MagSwitch 165. If we take a look at the physical structure of the magnet, you can see there's 2 rounded edges on either side. There's also 2 flat edges on the adjacent side. The magnet also has 6 mounting holes, 2 on either side as well as 2 on the very top. So I played around with this magnet for a bit, and this thing is powerful. Let's go turn it on and I'll show you what I mean. So just like with the MagSwitch magnet, to turn it on, you simply twist the knob on top. And I really wish there was an easy way to show you how strong this magnet is, but now that it's on, this thing is really secure. And now that I have this new magnet, which is stronger than my old one, I want to show you how I use it as a stop block on my table saw. Instead of trying to make cuts like this where my offcut could bind up against my fence and cause kickback, I can move my fence out of the way, place my magnet, tighten it down, and then make my cuts safely. So I'm very pleased with the apparent quality and the results I'll be able to get with this magnet, but I haven't even talked about the best part of this magnet. And that part is the price. Remember this magnet here that I purchased with 165 pounds of pressure? Well, that thing was $53.75, and this little guy is only $24.99. And I've ran a few calculations, and that's less than half the price.
Checks out.
So if you're looking for an affordable alternative to some of those more expensive mag switches, check out SAet Pro, as I think this is an excellent solution. So this tool is the Fastcap Pocket Chisel. Let's unbox this and take a closer look. So this chisel's got a really simple design. It's got a hard nylon handle as well as a tool steel blade. In my case, I chose to go with a 1/2 inch blade. Not only can you get this blade in a 1/2 inch width, but you can also get 1/4 inch, 3/4 inch, as well as 1 inch widths. Now for the purposes of this video, I'm not going to be able to flatten the back or sharpen the bevel. However, right out of the box, this tool feels very sharp. In fact, it's even sharp enough to shave my arm. Can it shave a mustache? I suppose. Good to know. Anyway, well, the real power of this chisel comes in its collapsibility. If we pull on both sides of the handle, we can fold this chisel away and put it away for safekeeping. Once this chisel is folded away, this makes it very simple to either throw in your pocket or even the pocket of your apron. And with that blade protected, you can be assured that you're not going to cut yourself. And that's the real reason why I purchased this tool, the ability to fold it up, slide it into your pocket, and have a chisel on you at all times. Now obviously, I need to sharpen this chisel and flatten the back before I use it on a daily basis, but I was super impressed that right out of the box, this tool can shave the hair on my arms. And it should be worth noting that Fastcap is an American-based company, and all the tools that I've purchased from Fastcap have been high quality.
Is it a banger?
Now this chisel isn't a fancy dancy chisel, however it is a banger chisel. With its hard nylon handle, you can actually use a hammer with this chisel. And with the chisel locked into place with the 2 tabs on the interior of the handle, you can bang away with this chisel. And this Fastcap lineup of pocket tools has a variety of different tool options, including putty knives, diamond sharpeners, laminate knives, pull saws, files and rasps, and even pocket awls. And I imagine I'll probably check out some of those other tools in the near future. So this next tool is the plastic scraper tool. Let's unbox this and see what it's all about. So here you can see the 2 scrapers that you get in relation to the size of my normal scrapers. Along with this set, you also get 100 blades included. And these plastic razor blades, just like other razor blades, are double-sided, so you have 2 surfaces to work with. And these razor blades are very easy to install. You simply slide them under the tabs and they lock into place. And all these blades are single beveled. They're also scratch-free and safe and easy to use. They're firm enough where they should be able to remove all that glue squeeze out. However, they're not so sharp they'll cut your hand or mar up your workpiece. So let's give one of these plastic scrapers a try and see how well it works with that glue squeeze out. And here I'll take the scraper and scrape away that glue. And as you can see, it easily removes from that piece of wood. And here you can see how that blade is not strong enough to damage the wood, but is able to remove that glue. And I'm sure this can't be the only application for this unique tool, so if you can figure out any uses for this gadget, let me know in the comments below. So this next tool is the magnetic nail and screw holder made by Handmoik. Let's see what it's all about. So this tool really couldn't be any more simple. It's simply a metal rod with a handle with a little magnet on the very end. And if you look at the very end of this tool, you can see there's a little notch cut out that allows it to cradle either a screw or a nail. And as you can see, with that little notch, it allows you to hold either a screw or a nail so that you can drive it in perpendicular to your work surface. So by holding it in place, I can keep my sausage fingers away from my hammer and drive it into place. But you're still going to need that hand-eye coordination to be able to hit your nail. Now you can also use this tool with screws, but I'm not quite sure a situation where you would do that. Or if you go to the video on Amazon, you can see them driving in a screw with a hammer. So for this product, I'm just going to give it a meh, as I'm not quite sure I would purchase this tool again, as I could probably make one of these with a rare earth magnet and an old screwdriver. So unlike the other 4 tools, this one doesn't impress me as much, but it was cool just to see how it works. Wake up! The video's over! Well, if you made it this far in the video, I truly appreciate it. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment, and share this video, as it really does help out this small woodworking channel. Well, thanks again for joining me today, and take care as always.